Picture this: a man in a tailored suit, standing poised under the blazing sun, holding an umbrella over a music mogul whose name alone could shift the tides of hip-hop. His demeanor is polished, his smile disarming, his presence almost regal. To the world, he's the epitome of class, a gentleman in a world of chaos. But behind that pristine facade lies a story so tangled, so shrouded in whispers and secrets, that it could unravel everything you thought you knew about the glittering empire of Sean, Diddy, Combs. This is the story of Fonzworth Bentley, not just a butler, not just an assistant, but a man who may have been far more to Diddy than anyone dared to imagine. What if the umbrella he held wasn't just shielding Diddy from the sun, but hiding a truth too explosive to be spoken? Buckle up, because this tale is about to take you deep into a world of power, betrayal, and silence that screams louder than words. The early 2000s were a golden era for hip-hop, a time when larger-than-life figures like Diddy ruled the industry with an iron grip. Sean Combs wasn't just a rapper or a producer. He was a brand, a lifestyle, a kingmaker who could turn nobodies into stars with a snap of his fingers. His bad boy empire was a fortress of wealth, influence, and unrelenting ambition. But every king needs a court, and in Diddy's court, one man stood out, not for his music, not for his rhymes, but for his quiet, almost otherworldly presence. Fonzworth Bentley, then known as Derek Watkins, was that man. To the casual observer, he was Diddy's stylish sidekick, the guy who carried the umbrella, pressed the suits, and ensured the mogul's every whim was met with precision. But to those who lingered in the shadows of the industry, Fonzworth was something else entirely, an enigma wrapped in a bow tie, a figure whose loyalty to Diddy raised questions that no one dared ask aloud. Fonzworth's story begins far from the glitz of Manhattan penthouses or Miami beachfronts. Born in Atlanta, Georgia, Derek Watkins was a product of the South, a man with a sharp mind and an even sharper sense of style. He wasn't chasing fame the way others did. He wasn't hungry for the mic or the spotlight. Instead, he was drawn to the mechanics of the industry, the art of presentation, the power of image. By the late 1990s, he'd landed in New York, a city that chewed up dreamers and spat them out. But Derek was different. He had a knack for making himself indispensable, a talent for blending charm with competence. It was this combination that caught the eye of Sean Combs, a man who thrived on control and demanded perfection from those around him. Their meeting wasn't a chance encounter. It was a collision of ambition and opportunity. Diddy, fresh off the chaos of the 1999 nightclub shooting involving Jennifer Lopez and Shine, was in desperate need of a rebrand. The world saw him as a volatile figure, a man whose empire was teetering on the edge of scandal. Enter Derek Watkins, a man whose polish and poise could soften Diddy's edges. Hired initially as a stylist, Derek quickly became something more. A confidant, a right-hand man, a shadow who moved in lockstep with the mogul. It was Diddy and his inner circle who christened him Fonzworth Bentley, a name as flashy and theatrical as the world they inhabited. The name wasn't just a nickname. It was a badge, a signal that Derek had been anointed, that he belonged to Diddy's world in a way few others did. To the public, Fonzworth was a curiosity. He appeared in music videos, always impeccably dressed, often holding an umbrella over Diddy's head as they strolled through exotic locales. The image was iconic: Diddy, the larger-than-life mogul, striding confidently while Fonzworth, ever the gentleman, shielded him from the elements. Fans laughed, some mocked, others admired the sheer audacity of it all. But behind the scenes, whispers began to circulate. Why was Fonzworth always there? Why did he seem so tethered to Diddy, not just as an employee, but as something deeper, more intimate? The industry is a place where rumors fester, and the rumors about Fonzworth and Diddy were relentless. Some called him a butler, others a concubine. Some said he was Diddy's +1, in ways that went beyond business. And then there were those who claimed Fonzworth wasn't just serving Diddy, he was surviving him. The turning point came with the lawsuits, a series of legal battles that would peel back the curtain on Diddy's empire. By the mid-2020s, Sean Combs was no longer just a music mogul. He was a defendant, a man accused of orchestrating freak-off parties that went far beyond the wild excess of typical celebrity bashes. These were gatherings shrouded in secrecy, where power dynamics twisted into something darker. Names began to surface in court documents, big names, familiar names. Michael B. Jordan, Usher, Meek Mill, YK Osiris. And then, like a ghost from the past, Fonzworth Bentley. Why was his name being dragged back into the spotlight after years of silence? What did he know? And more importantly, what had he endured? The rumors about Diddy's private life weren't new. For years, the industry had buzzed with stories of his freak-offs, parties where boundaries were blurred, and consent was often a gray area. But the allegations that emerged in the lawsuits were something else entirely. They painted a picture of a man who didn't just throw parties. He wielded power like a weapon, allegedly manipulating and coercing those around him into acts they weren't prepared for. And according to Freddie P., a former contestant on Diddy's Making the Band reality show, Fonzworth Bentley was one of those caught in Diddy's web. Freddie P.'s interview with The Art of Dialogue was a bombshell, a raw, unfiltered account that sent shockwaves through the industry. He didn't mince words. According to Freddie, Fonzworth wasn't just Diddy's assistant, he was his boyfriend, a term Freddie used with a mix of scorn and pity. He claimed Diddy had turned out Fonzworth, drawing him into a relationship that was as much about control as it was about affection. "Puffy don't got friends," Freddie said, his voice heavy with the weight of someone who'd seen too much. "Puffy don't got love. He owns people." The accusation was stark. Fonzworth, the polished gentleman, had been emotionally and perhaps physically manipulated, pulled into a dynamic where loyalty was demanded, and silence was non-negotiable. Freddie's words weren't just gossip. They were a window into a world where power corrupted everything it touched. He described scenes of Diddy disrespecting Fonzworth in front of others, treating him not as an equal but as a possession. At first, Freddie couldn't understand why Fonzworth tolerated it. Why would a man with so much potential, so much charisma, allow himself to be demeaned? Then it clicked. According to Freddie, Diddy wasn't just Fonzworth's boss, he was his puppet master, holding secrets that ensured Fonzworth's compliance. The rumors of blackmail, of non-disclosure agreements, NDAs, that bound Fonzworth to silence, began to take shape. The umbrella, once a quirky symbol of loyalty, now seemed like a metaphor for a much darker truth. Fonzworth was shielding Diddy, but at what cost to himself? The industry is a place where silence is currency, and Fonzworth's silence was deafening. After years at Diddy's side, he vanished from the mogul's orbit. No public statements, no tell-all interviews, no social media posts throwing shade. Just nothing. He resurfaced briefly in 2003, appearing on Making the Band, but even that was short-lived. After filming Wrapped, Fonzworth quit, walking away from Diddy's world without looking back. To the outside world, it seemed like a bold move, a man reclaiming his independence, but those who knew the industry's underbelly wondered if there was more to the story. Had Fonzworth escaped, or had he been discarded? Was his departure a triumph, or a survival tactic? What followed was a reinvention that few could have predicted. Fonzworth didn't just fade into obscurity, he rebuilt himself. In 2007, he published Advance Your Swagger, How to Use Manners, Confidence, and Style to Get Ahead, a New York Times bestseller that cemented his image as a guru of modern etiquette. The book was a love letter to self-improvement, a guide for navigating a world that often felt hostile to those who didn't fit its mold. For Fonzworth, it was also a declaration of independence, proof that he was more than Diddy's umbrella holder. He followed it up with From G's to Gents, an MTV reality show where he mentored rough-around-the-edges men, teaching them the art of refinement. The show ran for 2 seasons, a modest success that showcased Fonzworth's charisma and vision. But it was in music where Fonzworth truly found his footing. By 2011, he'd released his debut album, Solo Yours, a project that blended hip-hop, soul, and introspection. He caught the attention of Kanye West, another titan of the industry, and by 2013, Fonzworth had songwriting credits on Kanye's Yeezus, contributing to tracks like On Sight, Black Skinhead, I Am a God, and Hold My Liquor. 3 years later, he was back in Kanye's orbit, earning producer credits on The Life of Pablo for the track Ultralight beam. Fonzworth wasn't just surviving, he was thriving, carving out a career that stood apart from Diddy's shadow. Yet, the questions lingered. Why had he never spoken about Diddy? Why did he avoid the topic of his former boss with such deliberate care? The answer, according to Freddie P. and others, lay in the trauma of those years. The industry is a machine that chews up talent and spits out husks, and Fonzworth's time with Diddy may have left scars that never fully healed. Freddie's interview painted a picture of a man who'd been drawn into something he couldn't escape, a dynamic where loyalty was enforced through fear and manipulation. The rumors of freak-offs weren't just about wild parties. They were about power, about Diddy allegedly using his influence to bend others to his will. And Fonzworth wasn't the only one. Names like Meek Mill and YK Osiris began to surface, each tied to Diddy through whispers of coercion and control. Meek Mill's name emerged in a lawsuit filed by a producer named Lil Rod, who alleged that Diddy had a pattern of exploiting those around him. Lil Rod didn't name Meek directly, but his description of a Philadelphia rapper who dated Nicki Minaj left little room for doubt. The lawsuit also mentioned a male R&B singer who performed at the Super Bowl and had a successful Vegas residency, a description that pointed squarely at Usher. Both men, according to Lil Rod, had been drawn into Diddy's orbit, their relationships with the mogul tinged with allegations of manipulation and worse. A leaked audio, purportedly recorded by Diddy's former bodyguard, added fuel to the fire. The tape, which allegedly captured Meek in a compromising position at one of Diddy's parties, sent the internet into a frenzy. And then there was YK Osiris, whose 2021 vacation with Diddy in Jamaica sparked rumors that refused to die. A shirtless photo of Diddy in a pool, posted by YK with prayer hands emojis, raised eyebrows. When YK's baby mama claimed she'd caught him with a man, the whispers became shouts. The feds, too, were closing in. By 2025, Diddy's empire was under siege, with prosecutors digging into allegations of drugs, coercion, and illicit recordings. One male sex worker claimed he'd been flown from Atlanta to Miami for a freak-off session, where Diddy allegedly recorded him with an unnamed woman. The worker turned over the tape to authorities, along with details of drugs and other activities. He'd signed a deal to avoid charges, but his testimony added another layer to the growing case against Diddy. The question wasn't just what Diddy had done, it was who else had been pulled into his world, and what they'd been forced to endure. For Fonzworth, the past was a ghost that refused to stay buried. His name, once synonymous with Diddy's empire, was now a footnote in a scandal that threatened to topple it. Yet he remained silent, a choice that spoke volumes. In the music industry, NDAs are ironclad, and the consequences of breaking them are severe. But silence can also be a shield, a way to protect oneself from a truth too painful to confront. Was Fonzworth a witness to Diddy's alleged crimes? A victim of his manipulation? Or was he, as some whispered, Diddy's most loyal secret, a man who'd seen the darkness and chosen to walk away? The truth, as always, is elusive. Fonzworth Bentley is no longer the umbrella-holding assistant of the early 2000s. He's a writer, a producer, a mentor, a man who's built a career on his own terms. But the shadow of Diddy lingers, a reminder that fame comes at a price, and some debts can never be repaid. The industry is watching, waiting for the next revelation, the next name to surface. And in the quiet of his reinvention, Fonzworth Bentley remains a mystery. A man who walked through the fire and emerged on the other side, carrying secrets he may never share. This is just one thread in a tapestry of power, betrayal, and silence that stretches across the music industry. If you think fame is all glitz and glamour, think again. The stories they don't want you to hear are the ones that matter most. Subscribe, share, and dive deeper into the shadows with us. Because the truth? It's always darker than it seems.